Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Good morning. I'm Dick Gourley, and I'm going to actually be your MC and your speaker today because Rich had an engagement at the last minute that he couldn't change. So on behalf of Rich, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for attending. I really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you today. And I also would like to say congratulations to Rich and Startup Folsom and the Granite City Coworking space. You all are doing great work. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to share with you a high-level overview on the power of servant leadership and on how it can start startup founders. So it's called the Leveraging the Power of Servant Leadership. My company is Soul Duck Leadership, which is a nonprofit that develops servant leaders and social ventures. Basically, our description of our company is that we're an innovative global nonprofit organization committed to enabling a new generation of inspired leaders. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I want to emphasize the global piece because Emma is in Accra, and we did our MVP with her on the Power Moms Tribe, and we're going to, in 2024, move on to Nigeria and also to Kenya. My background, I've spent most of my life doing leadership stuff. I was active as a young child. I went to West Point to college. Then I was in the military for 7 years, mostly in Europe with NATO. Got a chance to look across the border at the Russians every day. And then I got out and I went to work for IBM and worked for a lot of different high-tech companies, eventually running the branch office in Silicon Valley. But along the way, I've also done about 35 nonprofits voluntarily, and I've learned quite a bit. So that's how I really became acquainted with what servant leadership is. So any discussion that we have here needs to really start with what exactly is leadership. So Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, was a past chair of the study of leadership at West Point. So there's a West Point down here in the little box. There's Jim, and then the little West Point logo. So he said, leadership is the art of getting people to want to do what must be done. But he also has the caveat that true leadership only exists if people follow when they would otherwise have the freedom to not follow. So that's kind of a placeholder on leadership. Now, if we go a little bit further, there are basically two types of leadership models today. The first model, model one, is the power model of leadership, which sometimes can be described as autocratic. There's a number of different styles. There's legitimate power where you are the boss. There's coercive power where you're trying to convince somebody to do something. There's expert power where you're the smartest in the room. There's informational power where you have data that other people need. You have obviously the power of reward, connection power, and then reverent power. Now the power model leader always has position power and resides at the top of the organization and directs team members. So that's a very specific style where you have one person who's the boss and is accountable for everything. Model two is the service model of leadership or servant leadership. And so the people that subscribe to that model are all called servant leaders. There is an overall top servant leader, but that person resides at the bottom of the pyramid. Okay. Servant leadership is based on the universal importance of service. Serving others is a fundamental universal human value, and it's been emphasized in the teachings of all the world's great religions, as well as by many respected thinkers and leaders. Um, in modern times, Robert Greenleaf, um, who was with AT&T, came up with the idea that servant leader, could make companies more effective. And so he was kind of the founder of modern servant leadership. So going on to the next slide, we talk about a tale of two pyramids, and this really describes servant leader pretty well. So in the power model, you have a top down, and the primary purpose is to control the people. It's really almost more of a management role. We're saying do this by this date. Um, there's very little empowerment. People need to have permission to do things. Um, so it's pretty controlling and sometimes can be a little bit discouraging if you're an employee. On the servant model of leadership, you flip the triangle upside down. And so the first thing is everybody on the chart there is a servant leader. Whether you're the top servant leader or whether you're part of the team, everybody serves one another. And so by it being bottom up, you're really empowering those people to be out there. And so that creates a more positive culture. And those are things that you need. So a little bit about servant leadership. This is a quote that I use. It basically says, I've learned that leadership is an acquired skill set honed through experience. Servant leadership is the highest form of leadership because it puts the needs of those being led first while cultivating organizational cultures that enable organizations to thrive. This is a photo of Solduck Falls, which is the name of the company, Solduck Leadership. And it's a place where I did a lot of growing as a young man in terms of my leadership skills. So let's go on now. It's all fine and good to talk about servant leadership and talk about it like an act of addition. Um, but what you really want to do is say, okay, what's the business problem that servant leadership can potentially help with? So what I've put out here for today is that startups are hard. Whether it's a raw startup, brand new, whether it's a small business, whether it's a line of business within a big corporation, running those organizations is hard. And in order to do that, you have to find a way to create the right kind of environment and culture and vision that will enable the organization to thrive. So there's a Harvard Business Review article in 2019 called Why Your Startup Won't Last by Ranjay Gulati and Vasuhara Sawini. And there are 10 things that basically make startups hard. And most of us are familiar with number one, which is no viable business model or idea. You might have something really exciting, but you can't get traction. Second one is fear of structure. So you've got people, maybe co-founders, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 people, but they don't want to make things too formal. It's just sort of like, we'll just kind of do it free form. The other extreme is taking the vertical structure too far. So you've got layers of management, and that's not a good way to go either, because it takes too long to make decisions. You want to be agile and you want to be quick. And then the fourth item is mapping your path to that of established companies. It might be nice to say, well, we kind of like to emulate so-and-so. But the fact is, each company really needs to figure out, what their work process is and what their culture is. So I've highlighted 3 bullets in red. First is crafting the culture. The second is spotting the right talent. And then the third is the changing role of the founder. A lot of founders have the idea and they'll get it to a certain point, and then the VCs need to bring in a real CEO that can scale it. Those three things are part of what we call a culture and leadership issue. And so for the startups that are struggling, or the companies that have started and are struggling, typically the issue is they have a dysfunctional culture, could be even toxic, and they have leadership issues. And leadership issues can include um, internal communication, external communication, trust, empowering the employees, etc. So those things are real and they impact startups every day. So Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, and I referenced earlier, he has done a lot of work in this area, trying to figure out why some companies make it, some companies don't make it. So his suggestion is to take out a clean sheet of paper, okay? Don't go in and try to put Band-Aids on things. Um, just start like you're starting over. And then the second thing is intentionally work to build an enduring great organization. So what does that mean? It means that the company does the right framework stuff to make sure that the company is a great company in terms of its culture, its performance, and that it lasts. So you think about Patagonia, you think about IBM, you think about Intel. They're enduring great organizations, and each one's a little bit different in style. But those are the ones that even though times get tough or technology changes, they continue to thrive. So if you were going to go do that, what you want to do is, this is a picture of the Mount Everest Base Camp. What you need to do is you need to build your base camp, and in order to get to the top of Mount Everest, you need the right people on the climbing team and the right people with the right skills. Okay, you also need a vision and also a plan of how you're going to get there. And if you're just kind of scrambling around as an early startup, you're not going to be able to get there. You might say, well, I'd like Joe to come with us because he's my buddy, but he's never climbed a mountain. It doesn't work. So what Collins says is there are basically 11 things you need in order to build an enduring great organization. So I've called it the bill of materials. So if you take a solution, if you took an iPad and you took all the pieces that were in it, that would be the bill of materials for the solution, which is the iPad. So our solution is creating an enduring great organization. So starting off, number one, everybody on the team needs to be committed to excellence. Good is not great. We want great. And you don't always get great, but you should at least be committed to excellence. Second, you should have level 5 leadership. So you want a good leader in there, whether they're a power leader or a servant leader. Number 3 is you need a great vision framework. And Collins uses the vision framework as a model that I'll show you in a minute. But it discusses core values, purpose, and mission. And when you get those right, it becomes your guiding rules, if you will, on how to make decisions and where to take the company. A piece of that is the company serving a cause? Is the company's cause to get up every day and sell 10 widgets, or is it to help make a better world? And so cause is important. And Guy Kawasaki talks about that as well in The Art of the Start. He said, you've got to find your meaning, make meaning. But the fourth one is what we call the hedgehog concept. So when you do something, the hedgehog concept is based on a story many years ago that a fox and a hedgehog. And so fox is fast and quick, and a hedgehog is slow and can do one thing, basically roll up in a little ball. So one of the things that we encourage people to do is find your one thing. And the hedgehog concept, which I'll show you in a second, you have to figure out what can you be the best in the world at, what are you passionate about, and then what's an economic engine that's going to keep that going. Number 5 is you can have a great vision, but if you don't have great people, it's irrelevant. If you get the right people on the bus and in the right seat, that's what you want to do. You want to craft a great culture. You want your people to be able to confront the brutal facts and say, hey, we need to talk to you. We don't think this is the right way. The culture of discipline, and then intentionally implementing a service model where every member is a servant leader. So this is the hedgehog concept. You start with what you can be the best at. Then you talk about what can you be passionate about, because if you can be the best at making bricks, but you don't care about making bricks, you're not passionate about it, it doesn't work. And then you need that economic engine. So how do you create a foundation based on servant leadership? You determine your purpose, both personal and organizational. You define and live your values. You define your vision. You share and reinforce that organizational foundation and servant leadership culture. You build energy. You build performance. You recognize and encourage people. That's what June was saying at the beginning here. You build relationships, you build character, and you always serve with a kind heart and a positive attitude. So what are the benefits of a servant leadership culture? So the organization's purpose and objectives are clear. The culture exudes mutual trust and respect and has positive, happy team members. You have internal and external communication is effective, proactive, and transparent. The organization's leaders proactively engage employees and customers for feedback and suggestions. Employees are highly motivated, continually growing their skills and receiving positive recognition. That's the servant leader's responsibility, is to develop them. And as a result, turnover is low. Customer sat and experience are outstanding. Organizational business performance exceeds objectives, and the servant leadership culture enables the organization to be an enduring great organization. I know that's a lot of text, but it's important. So Ken Blanchard, who is a thought leader on servant leadership, says very simply, if you're going to be a great leader, you have to care deeply about your people. So a quick summary. I provided an overview of how servant leadership may help an early stage organization. I personally am a firm believer in the power of servant leadership based on my experiences. Is it for everybody? Not necessarily. But if you choose to pursue this approach, you must be very intentional to make it work. It has to be part of your everyday routine. Leaders must walk the talk like they do at Hewlett Packard. Both Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, their goal every day was to get out of the office and go down to the factory or to the sales office and talk to people. And then thank you for being a professional audience. We can talk about questions here. I have additional information here that I want to share with you about Soul Duck leadership if we have time to do that. So I'll open it up for questions right now, and you all can just speak up. Emma, Tim, and June. And you can unmute yourself, I think.
Yeah.
So what do you, question, June?
I'm wondering, so I wrote down four things to create an enduring organization that hit me while you were speaking. And one is to be committed to excellence. And that turns me on, that's the kind of people I like to be around, and that's the kind of business I want to build. I'm trying to build. And sometimes it was funny because as I started getting people who came to my team who had more experience in the tech world, they went, well, this is good enough. This is good enough. And I had to like really push back. Uh, and I couldn't say, I had to respect them, their position, because they knew more in the tech world. They were successful in the tech world, made money and all. And I had to show them that excellence mattered. And one way I did that, which was transformative for me and my group, is I said, okay, let's test it. And I got that from listening to a webinar by David Bland that Startup Sack hosted, and he talked about just the simple steps in testing. And so anytime there was a problem, I'd say, okay, let's test it. And it was funny because that took away all of the ownership of the concepts. It said, and so I found that really effective in creating an excellent product, which I'm trying to do now. But I'm at the point where I can't keep changing things anyway, so I have to be satisfied at one point in time, and then if I get the best developers and everything, this grows bigger, then it will get better. You got to stop somewhere in designing and making changes, or else it drives the other people on your team crazy.
So June, what you're sharing there is really, really important. And so a couple of thoughts. First off, when you begin an organization, you want to figure out what the core values are. Okay. So if you look at this is my vision framework for Solduck leadership. So these are the core values that we have: trust, respect, do the right thing, servant leadership, innovation and entrepreneurship, diversity, equity, inclusion, outreach, excellence in all we do, and dedication to every leader's success. So the first thing you want to do is get the team that's in place to align on that as the core values. Then you don't want to just throw it up on a plaque or throw it in a drawer. When you recruit, you want to know that people that want to join the team are committed to excellence, right? They are committed to trust and respect and doing the right thing. So that becomes, those core values are the things that guide your decisions as you move forward as an organization. And you don't need one person sitting at the top making all the decisions. You need the whole team, because you get different context and perspective with other inputs. It doesn't mean you have to always do what somebody suggests, but what it does is you get the idea out on the table, and then number two, what happens is that person feels like they're valued, okay? And then down here, you've got purpose, which says this is why we get up every day. So Solduck's purpose is to develop servant leaders who's going to help create, build, and grow the businesses, nonprofits, and social ventures needed to create a better world. And then you have a BHAG, which is your big, hairy, audacious goal that says, our internal mission is to build this by the end of the year. And then over time, we want to develop 1,500 servant leaders and 375 new social ventures. And that's a 15-year target. Okay? Emma, questions, or Tim? Any thoughts?
Well, I think I'm new to all this, so I'm just here to absorb mostly.
Okay. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to go a little bit further into what I shared with Chico, talks a little bit more about the company, okay? So we just talked about this quote. We talked about the overview. So here's Emma. And basically, when you're building an organization, you have to say, who do we serve? So in this case, we do individuals, business organizations, nonprofit organizations, and social ventures. Okay. Um, Emma was our MVP. She went through the cohort at Sac State, and then I became her mentor and coach. And a year ago, May 2nd, she launched Power Moms Tribe, which has done extremely well. They graduated the first 38 mothers in second half of 2022, and it's just been going extremely well. So she's our first customer, partner, whatever. She's on the advisory board. But we're also looking for businesses, nonprofits, and social ventures as we roll out. So what's their problem? So their problem is that individuals, leaders, and organizations that have the desire, passion, and domain expertise to create a new business, nonprofit, or social venture do not have a simple, affordable, innovative, or high quality way to learn how to create, build, and sustain an enduring and well-run organization. Okay, so the famous philosopher Yogi Berra is down here in the bottom, and he says, if you don't know where you're going, you might not get there. Okay, so it's a very fun statement, but it's very true. He also said, if you come to a fork in the road, take it. Okay, so you can see the second visual there. So think about Sacramento. Think about the startup situations you've been in. Until Carlson Center started to happen, there were no courses or anything on how to do this. You could read Guy Kawasaki's book, but there weren't a lot of places you could go that say, okay, this is how you do it. And in our case, we're focusing on the leadership piece as well as building the organization. Okay. So this is our solution. It's really two-part solution. The first is we have our basically our web, which talks about what we're doing. This is to kind of gain awareness, and that's why we did that first part of the presentation, was to kind of get people going, oh, okay, now I get what it is. But the second piece is for the people that like what they see, we want to provide them a global online community, which is shown right here. And in there, those people are going to get knowledge and support. And I'll show you what's inside the black box in just a second. So make them aware. If they want to do it, great. If they don't, that's okay too, because it's not, again, it's not for everybody. And then you say, okay, now we're going to give you knowledge and support. Okay. So this is the web, and I'd welcome anybody to go through the web, and if you have questions or see any mistakes, let us know. This is what's part of the awareness step here. So we have a section called Getting Started, and we would like people to attend an Introduction to Servant Leadership workshop, which really kind of explains, it takes what I sort of started with there and makes it more detailed. I'll be doing servant leadership keynote talks to different groups and conferences to raise awareness. We'll have our own resource center that will eventually move from there into the online community. And then we do something called the Servant Leader Readiness Assessment, which is where we evaluate each person to decide whether going into the global online community is really a fit. Is it something they really want to do, or are they just kicking tires? And our intent on this is to help people. We're not focused so much on, well, we got 5 people to pay this much money. We want to do a lot of this with sponsors and with grants. So this is the community. And once you've gone through that assessment, we do formal onboarding for each individual person. We have a mobile app for each individual person. And then we have a mentor program whereby that mentor is working at the front end of this to help that person define their life purpose and their organizational and career purpose. Once that's done, the first thing they do is they go through the servant leadership school, which is similar to what Emma was trying to do this last year. Once that's done, they can graduate and become an alumni of Solduck, or they can continue on their journey. So there's leader personal development, there's social venture school, which is sort of like learning how to do the lean canvas. And then at that point, we give them actually a coach. And a coach is different than a mentor. A mentor says, this is how you do this and do this, do that. A coach says, June, what are your thoughts on the farmers markets that are spreading across the West Coast? Okay. So you would have your own idea. It's not like me telling you to do something, but somebody would ask you the question, say, yeah, I think there's this big opportunity because of whatever. Now that coach then follows them, and for the people that want to implement their idea, we now have a social venture incubator. And that's a 3 to 6 month program. We're going to take money from the foundation and put seed funding in there. And then we're going to stick with those people as they build out that company. So the business model is a SaaS subscription. We get contributed revenue from grants and universities and corporations. We can get subscription revenue from people that want to go through the program, but we also have scholarships for those who can't afford it. And then we get services revenue. So it could be setting up Salesforce. It could be setting up a website. It could be whatever. And again, if the organization has gotten funding, then they're going to be able to pay for those services. So you take all that, subtract the costs, and then you have your profit. And so we're going to be a 501c3, and basically our model is based on HP's innovation business printing model, where they want to just make it totally easy for customers to be a part of the community. So the underlying magic is that unlike some nonprofit organizations, our solution is simple, affordable, innovative, and on demand. This is our team, myself as a founder, and Mike Anderson is a chief marketing officer. He was the CMO at Reviver, which is the digital license plate company. So he did a lot of work in Silicon Valley over the years, including with Steve Jobs. This is our advisory board. So Emma is not only a customer, but she's an advisor. Okay. Tom Seaman, who's leads new business innovation at HP North America, and then June Chang, who's up in Seattle and is founder of an organization called Digital Wise Owls. These are the business partners that we're working with to guide us. So you can see Carlson Center, Startup SAC, 1 Million Cups, Kaufman, Y Combinator, Tucker Media, Mighty Networks, Weaving Influence, and then we've got Fuller, the Debris Leadership Center, and then the Triune Leadership Services Organization. So in order to be successful, you have to set metrics in place. So if you know where you're going, you have to say, how do we measure it? So we have 3 key OKRs. The first is internal mission is to successfully build and operate this by the end of the year. Second is to develop 1,500 servant leaders and establish 375 new social ventures by the end of 2038. And then eventually our really super BHAG is that we'll be an enduring great nonprofit by 2058. So we're looking at 35 years there, okay? So That's the key metrics. These are the key achievements of how we're doing. This is our timeline. This is our financial needs. So you can see initial seed funding numbers as well as investment vehicles. And then this is our little thank you note. And then the contact information here. So hopefully that gives you a little bit better sense of what we're trying to do and how we would help somebody who wanted to pursue servant leadership actually go do it. So in a sense, I've given you an awareness pitch, and now I've given you you have this organization that can help you with that if it's something you want to do. So the purpose of today is not to sell you to come work with Solduck per se. It's really to say, okay, there's a great opportunity. And we personally believe that servant leadership can make a huge difference for startups and early stage organizations. So with that, we can go back to questions once again. And Tim, do you have any thoughts on any of this?
Well, I think I'm at the stage where if I was to do a startup, the question is what would I do? But the main thing I keep thinking about is like, well, is there another way to teach people programming? That's what I have a lot of experience in. There's a lot of stuff out there, but is there something I could do that would add to that in a way that would provide a resource that isn't already available? And is that something that you would build into a business, or is that just, tutoring people?
Well, a couple thoughts there. So first, great questions. I think with your background in programming, one of the things that you probably need to think about is, is in your gut, do you say, you know what, I want to take the knowledge that I have and go solve some sort of project and create some sort of solution, okay? And you could find it from customers, whatever. You could also say, you know what, I want to just go be part of a great development team that's doing something on its own where you don't have to be the boss per se. In either case, if you were going to do the first one where you were going to try to do the startup, the idea of doing the servant leadership piece probably would be helpful because you would attract people that are like-minded with you from a culture point of view and skill point of view. The other thing you could do is if you went to an organization and you'd gone through the Solduck Leadership School, you would be able to impact the organization by having those skill sets and actually maybe even sharing that idea with the group saying, I got this experience in servant leadership and maybe this can help us a bit. So there's a couple ways to do that, and there's no right or wrong way per se. But what I've found is you get a lot of startups where you've got one founder that's kind of dogmatic and you've got a kind of a toxic environment and nobody's being completely open and transparent. And next thing you know, you have people leaving the company and, somebody didn't give them stock options or whatever. So if you get the culture thing right and you know where the company's going, I think the servant leadership can help a lot. I'm not trying to oversell on it, but I think there's kind of two paths for you. And part of it depends on what you like. I mean, you could be a development architect, right? Which is a really neat job because you're really creating stuff. You could also be the best darn programmer in the whole world too, and, be happy doing that. So part of that's something you have to think about. And I'm assuming are there other people around you that you've talked about maybe doing something with?
No, there isn't any nascent startup as far as relationship with other people. It's more just something that I've kicked around in my own head of like, would it be possible to create an interactive experience where people learn programming without having to read a bunch of theory up front or spend a lot of time on things that aren't as fun? And so the target pupil would be somebody that wouldn't necessarily have learned how to program otherwise. So, you know, I don't really have a big interest in entering the boot camp space. That seems like there's a lot of entrance there, and you know, I don't know if there's really any better way to do it. There's certainly no way to offer a better value proposition for the type of people that want to sign up for a boot camp. And that's because they want something super quick, right? And that's not what I'm all about. Like, I like the whole Norvig, teach yourself programming in 20 years type of thing. You know, it's basically saying if you really want to get extremely good at that craft, it's going to take a while. So I would tell anybody that really wants to get into it that that's the path that they ought to take. But for the people that don't want to get into it, I said, well, what if you just played this little game here? It's fun, and then, you know, they learn a little bit of programming. Not much, but just a little bit. By happenstance, by accident, almost, in interacting with it. And then maybe they take that a little bit farther, maybe they don't. But regardless, then that increases the general literacy in the world for what does it even mean to program? What is a program? What is all this stuff that's around us that is made of software doing? Like, why does it work the way it does? And
so I got you. So let me share something with you. So do you know who Seth Godin is?
Linchpin, right? What did he write? Linchpin?
I don't. He may have. He wrote Tribes.
Oh, okay.
I
think he's also the author of Linchpin, but he's a prolific author on
Purple Cow, things like that. So anyway, on Tribes, he talks about a development guy in New York who's a programmer just like you, okay? And this guy created this massive business because he was able to take the things you were just talking about and start to get people around him that started to create this tribe of programmers. And I'll find the quote for you and get it to you, but I think it might be interesting to take a look at it.
So it's a quote from Tribe. Okay. He did write Linchpin, so it's the same guy.
Yeah. So if you go into go look in Tribes, and I think I've got it here.
I just Googled Seth Godin Tribes quotes.
I went to my personal library here. So you've got Tribes, which is that. And his name is Joel Spolsky. Joel Spolsky is changing the world, maybe not your world, but the world of programmers and software companies and the people that work them. He runs a small software company in New York, but his real passion is talking about how to run a small software company.
Isn't Spolsky the guy that started Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow?
What was it called?
Stack Exchange. And Stack Overflow was the first question and answer site in the Stack Exchange network, but they have a bunch of different forums now. And some of them aren't even programming related. Stack Exchange was for asking programming questions. And then, but I think there's like cooking. I think there's all kinds of other form. But the model is that it's question and answer. So you can go post a question, and then other people on that site can pose potential answers, and then if
They can weigh in.
yeah, and then if the question asker likes an answer, they can say, "Yep, you know, this is an answer. This is my, you know, I sign off on this as an answer." And yeah, let me check real quick though,
Yeah,
because
check that out. But see, the other thought I had for you, Tim, is, you know, you could say, okay, what are these people that you were just talking about? They want to do it quick. Well, what if they were able to go into your online community and look at videos, right? And then do an exit test. You could develop that really easily, and you could say, okay, here's the basic stuff you need if you want to just kind of dabble in it. And if you want to go do more stuff, you can go over here. I think there's something there personally.
yeah, I mean, I haven't found anything in particular to latch on to, like as far as, you know, I think I'm familiar with some of these other people that have contributed, and it's like, well, what could I do that would be worthy of being out there? Yeah, so Spolsky is he wrote a blog on Joel on software, but he also
Tim, can you hold on just 1 second? So Ernest has a question, so I want to jump in here real quick. I just saw it now. So Ernest, I apologize for not seeing it quicker, okay?
Oh, no problem, no problem. I was learning a lot by listening. Hi, Dick. My apologies. I arrived late, so I didn't hear the introduction that you did for Solar. I came in about 8 minutes after, but you were talking about the company. Very much interested in service leadership. I'm with Dell Technologies. Both my wife and I, Gail, are HP, ex-HPers.
Wow.
I actually worked in the imaging and printing group, so I noticed you made reference to that. My team invented the technology to put printers on networks, the print server product line. But I'm here on behalf of my wife. Her company is called Guest Brown Impact, and as I said, we're both familiar with servant leadership from a faith perspective. We teach a lot of Bible studies and are familiar with the concept, and also apply it to our business ventures. So my question is, she has a company, it's called Guest Brown Impact. It focuses for B2C on developing skill set in women, particularly women of color, that help close the wage gap. And then she has a B2B side of her business that focuses on working with organizations, mid-market organizations, mid-sized organizations that can help them with their diversity, equity, and inclusion profile and meeting the metrics that they set. We find that that a lot of times they set goals and intent, but have trouble with the execution. And she's got a couple of service models that can help mid-market companies be more effective in achieving those metrics. We're familiar with the Carlson approach. I noticed that your pitch kind of followed their. We met them at a pitch fest when they coached for the California Black Chamber of Commerce back in October. And so I'd be interested in learning about more about becoming or having her propose herself as a candidate for your Soul Duck services. How would she pursue you?
No, first off, thank you for sharing. It's exciting to hear somebody, you know, that's aware of it and believes in it. So I think it's a great opportunity for you guys. We had Sacramento women or something like that in business I think it was 2 weeks ago. And it's more of a marketing kind of an organization, but I think with the servant leadership idea, we should probably, the three of us, get together. You know, this is what Emma has done in Ghana. And so she's worked specifically with, and she's off the, not on the screen right now because she's feeding her kids, but she she's done this with the Power Moms Tribe, which is women in Ghana that have children, women with children. So basically, you've got the males being not as responsible as we would like them to be, and so she saw this as a problem as a mother. And so we launched it a year ago in May. She was the MVP for what we were doing. And so what she's done is gone through a cohort that graduated 38 women in November. And it's everything from doing like a real business, like a tech business, to going down to the market and setting up a table and selling fruit, right? And each one of these women is unique. And so she's done that, and she's just done a stellar job on it. And so I think what you're suggesting there makes a lot of sense. And I would welcome the opportunity to meet with you and your wife. Maybe we could even include Emma, just to talk about it, because where we're at right now is I've kind of been working on this my whole life. I don't know where you came in exactly, but from the time I was a little kid, watching JFK on TV and his speech saying, ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? And so I've got that in my DNA. And over the years, I've worked with 35 nonprofits, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I know how servant leadership, when it's intentional, can make a huge difference. And I don't think I talked about it here, but I did when I was in Chico this morning. I talked about DEI. And one of the things I said about DEI was it's really, really, really important. But one of the people I'm coaching who's doing that, I said, this presentation is perfect, but you need a couple of slides because you're going to get some pushback, right? And you're going to get the same thing with servant leadership, because they're going to just say, oh, that's all, let's sing Kumbaya and go to a couple planning meetings and that's the end of it. No, it's not. It's like changing your whole culture and way of life. And when you do that, you basically want to change the organization so that then you get better business results. So your customers are happy, your revenue is better, you have lower attrition rates, you have great, happy employees, and that's what really keeps things going. And so did you see the pyramid charts?
I did, yeah. And that makes complete sense to me, and it would to Gail as well. We try to implement those practices, and I also work at Dell Technologies, and I would say ridiculously strong culture that we have here that I think our business results speak for ourselves, but I think they're grounded in the culture, so we definitely recognize that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for you there. And I think when you look at her target market with women, that's a huge opportunity. And they're just dying for content and inspiration and encouragement. And so I think we should talk, and it would be a delight to spend a little time and hear what you guys are doing. And we're launching Friday, kind of a soft launch, but we're still kind of trying to find our way, and we want to do a lot of customer discovery. So you could be part of that customer discovery, or you could be part of the organization, maybe as a test.
I have to go to another meeting, but I did capture your contact information. Is that the best way to reach you, by phone or
That's great.
email?
Phone or email or whatever.
All right. Well, thank you, and I will be in touch along with my wife, Gail Guest Brown. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a good
Ernest.
day.
Take care. So we're probably going to wrap up in just a second. Let's go back to Tim real quick on your comments. I apologize for interrupting, but I'd seen Ernest in there before, and then he kind of went away, I think.
No, that's fine, especially if he had to parachute in and out. I don't have as much of a focused sense of what I'm doing right now, and that's actually part of my problem is that, I spent a few days last week just doing like algorithm practice and programming challenges on HackerRank. And I was thinking, the way they do the interactive programming on that is neat and all. I mean, it's certainly better than online testing used to be, but that concept could be taken to another level. And so I have this sort of like vague idea that things could be better, but I don't know exactly what I wanted to make or how it would work exactly.
So did you end up finding a mentor at that mentor session?
No, I mean, I got a lot of good advice from everybody I talked to. Unfortunately, I think we didn't even make it halfway around that room, so I only got to talk about like 5 people.
I think the goal was to do 4 over 2 hours. June, thank you for joining us. It was great to see you, and I look forward to seeing you in Coeur d'Alene.
Yes, and I'm really hungry for this and incorporating it in what I'm doing because
Well, you sent me a note a couple weeks ago and said you wanted to be one of the first ones in, so we're good to go, okay?
okay, I just want to know all of these discussions because I'm absorbing it like a sponge. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll
Good.
talk to you later. Bye.
So just a couple of 2 minutes here. So Tim, what I'd like to suggest is you and I do a Zoom together. And I think you're at a different stage. You're kind of like, okay, what do I want to do with my life, right? And
yeah, I mean, I worked for one place for 20 years and then, had the bottom fall out. That company died. And then the pandemic started right after that. And so due to a series of interesting events, I kind of ended up in a place where I just took a time out. And I am currently sort of at the end of my rope as far as like, I have I have a family, and my other half is making really good money, but having her pay for everything isn't really a long-term strategy, and I have been using my savings to do my part, but I'm out of that now, even though I've been fairly frugal.
yeah.
So I do need to do something, but I've taken enough time to myself that I was like, hey, I don't really want to do what I did before.
So we should do a session together, and it goes back to the idea of what's your purpose, what's your vision for your life, what are your core values, those kind of things, and you want to tie it in your case together with your family. So it's she should be on the boat with you, okay? But
Yeah.
I would be happy to do that with you. We all go through it. And I think just by coming today, I think you've helped a lot, in terms of getting some perspective. So why don't we try to do something in the next week or two? And I'm usually pretty flexible on time, but I think that's probably where to start. And I think just the whole concept of servant leadership will help you as an individual, no matter what you choose to do. And we'll be able to share that with you, okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So, Emma, are you still there? She's feeding the kids, so yeah. So anyway,
Yes,
well,
but yes, I'm
okay.
here.
Can you turn on your screen real quick?
I don't know if you can see me, but hold on. Sorry, it's evening right here in Accra, so okay.
You got it?
Can you see me now?
There we go. So Emma, I want to introduce you to both. I want you to meet both Tim and then Diane Hogle. Diane is my sister.
Okay, hi, Diane.
She popped on here and she knows all about the Power Moms tribe.
Oh,
And Tim, you know, one of the things that'd be fun is for you to talk to Emma because we talked about this a little before, but she took this idea like June has of, you know, helping people. And she's been at it for a year. She's doing an incredible job. And it's just a really cool story. So if you guys want to hook up, I'll give you the connection information. We can
that
do
would
that.
be great.
So good. Well, listen, I want to respect your time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I think today has been a really nice starting session for what we're doing. We had a
Yes.
really great meeting in Chico this morning was well attended. And I think we're going to be doing a lot more of these as we do our soft launch beginning on Friday. And we're going to go build a tribe, right, Emma?
Yes, we are on our way.
All right. Well, I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you for making time to be here. It means a lot to me. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off. But thank you so much. And thanks to Rich Foreman for inviting us to do this. Okay.
Hey,
Take care.
take care, everyone.